Hello, you're listening to the latest Liverpool Echo Blood Red podcast. A surprise 7-1 victory earlier in the week for the Reds, but Manchester City are next. We'll talk about both of those fixtures very shortly, plus a little bit around Jurgen Klopp's press conference, and then we'll predict our teams for the weekend's game. Ian Doyle and Theo Squires are both with me. I'll come to you first, Doyle, as you were in Glasgow midweek. As much as Rangers are not particularly good, and Jurgen Klopp kind of alluded to a much bigger challenge at the weekend as we expected, rather than on Tuesday night earlier today in his press conference, to score 7 goals away from home. It doesn't happen too often. Obviously, we can't go overboard, but I suppose that can be no bad thing for starters.
Well, I think one of the first things is, for anybody who follows me on Twitter will know that I've remembered my coat this time. So that was that was the big deal. You don't want to be forgetting your coat up in Scotland. I know Rangers aren't very good, but to be honest, it's the biggest ever defeat they've ever had, or matches the biggest ever defeat Rangers have had in their history, and it's also the biggest win any English team's ever had over Scottish opposition. So I don't think we can completely dismiss Rangers are rubbish. So, but I tell you what, at 1-1, you wouldn't have said Liverpool were going to win 7-1, would you? I mean, to be fair, what Klopp said after the game was correct. He said that Liverpool, the first half paved the way for the second half, in the sense that he could see Liverpool were doing the right things. Rangers were very much living, he thought, very much on the edge, working on the edge. That's why Goldson, he said, got injured, because he had to make a last-ditch strong tackle to stop Nunes going through, and they were like putting the bodies on the line. That's sometimes what happens when you're doing that kind of thing. So he said that, and in that respect, he was correct, because straight after the start of the second half, Liverpool were much more on it. They'd changed minor tweaks in the formation. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. And the minute they get the second goal, it really was a matter of how many were they going to score, because Rangers, not saying they gave up, but they could see that Liverpool were the quality that they showed in the first game, which meant that they could have won by more than 2-0. That was evident. And the reality is that Rangers, scored. To be fair, it was a good goal from their point of view. And they had the one chance, wasn't it, that the Canati blocked. That was about it. How many saves did Addison make? And this is Rangers, where you saw that they held Napoli to 0-0 until about 55 minutes when they had a player sent off. I suspect they'll give Ajax a very good game in the last home game. And it's it's an atmosphere where it is, a Scottish team hosting an English team. There's always going to be that kind of edge to it. So I think Liverpool, they cope with that pretty well when you consider that they had 19-year-old Elliott starting, 20-year-old Carvalho, and 23-year-old Canati, who, they added a bit of energy. Even if in the first half, you look at Carvalho in particular, he gave the ball away for the goal. He could easily have been substituted. And while Elliott did okay, he could have been substituted as well, because you saw he was on the bench. But it was interesting that Klopp kept faith with the pair of them, because in the second half, they both played well, and Elliott got his goal. He played a part in, one of Firmino's goals. Carvalho played a part in a couple of goals as well. So in that sense, they would have benefited from it. But yeah, Rangers last 15 minutes, just they very, very disheartened, disillusioned. They knew that things were going a bit wrong, and the last thing you want then is to see Salah and Jota, thrown onto the pitch, especially when, certainly in the case of Salah, he looked like somebody who, not so much a point to prove, but wanted to go, well, actually, this is an opportunity for me to get a few goals and get a bit of confidence. And you saw from his 3 finishes, they were hardly while everyone will say, well, it was against Rangers. Well, the goal's the same size and still a goalkeeper in there. And the finishes were all very, very good. The first one, I instantly thought, I must have taken a deflection. We didn't get any replays, by the way, up in the Rangers. So it wasn't until after the game where you're like, oh, actually, he's actually scored that himself. Second one, clever finish, wasn't it? Put his foot on the ball and then put it into the corner where the only place the keeper couldn't get it. And the third one was very much a trademark Salah finish, curling it off the far post where the keeper's not getting close to it. So if out of this comes Liverpool, Salah gaining confidence, Jota a bit of confidence, Canati a bit of confidence from playing, the 2 youngsters getting something from it as well, job done, because I think everybody, I wouldn't say expected Liverpool to win, but they would not have been surprised that Liverpool had won at Rangers. But I don't think nobody would have said it was going to be 7-1. And as Klopp said in his press conference today, we've scored 7 at Rangers and 9 against Bournemouth. We need to start spreading the goals about a bit more into some of the other games, because we'd have got a few more points. And I think that going forward, I think Liverpool will, they've not really had a problem, to be fair, this season after scoring goals. It's been keeping them out. And I thought defensively they played pretty well. against Rangers, and you look at Joe Gomez playing at right back. He offered a bit more solidity than Trent has done in the last couple of weeks for obvious reasons. But I don't think there were too many negatives from the evening.
We'll come on to a few more of the positives specifically in a second, Theo. I wanted to ask a similar question to you, really. How much can we learn from this? How much confidence do you think Liverpool will take? I suppose as much individually, I suppose for Salah, for example, he might take confidence from it, and Liverpool as a team as well heading into Sunday, as much as it will obviously be a very different challenge.
Probably not that much, to be honest. That's what we said on Monday. Like Rangers, it was always going to be a slightly different test at Ibrox. There's more of an atmosphere and everything, but it is still Rangers. It is still Scottish football. There is still that drop off there. We thought the 2-0 victory at Anfield, right, that's a step in the right direction. And then Liverpool were pretty poor against Arsenal. Now, even if this is enough of a confidence boost, right, we've got a few goals here. We've got players back on form a little bit. Man City are the best team in Europe. It's a very hard one to go from playing Rangers and building on that to think this can be like for like. And there were still holes there in that squad. There were still gaps between the midfield and defence. And Addison didn't have much to do. As Doyle said, there were a couple of times where Rangers carved them open. And if Rangers can do it, then Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, and then Erling Haaland running in behind, all these players are going to have joy as well. Liverpool will have to be at their absolute best to get it right. And if we're seeing a similar system to what they've done in the last couple, what they've done against Rangers, it's still a system they're learning on the job. It's a new one. You're just hoping that it's given them a bit more fire in the belly. It's like they've got that belief back. Like Salah's hat-trick, he's been dropped to come off the bench and get this hat-trick. There he's got a point to prove. He can go out now and hit a goal-scoring run like we've seen from Haaland so far this season. But then Liverpool weren't great when after the 9-0. When was it Newcastle was the next game there. They weren't out the best there and they needed the latest of winners to get it over the line. It's very hard to second-guess what's coming from them next because we've had a fair few false dawns where they have just been going up and down, not really getting it right from 1 minute to the next. They need to find a bit of consistency, but we've been saying that for the whole season so far. We're mid-October now and they've not had it. Hopefully it's the first step, but we'll be able to say it for definite if they're actually putting an improved performance against Man City, because really Man City is the first step, the same as if they'd put in a good performance against Arsenal. That was the first step. Like Rangers is just the warm-up. But as we've seen from the team, we said when we're doing a team selector, you can put Elliott in, you can put Carvalho in, it doesn't matter. Liverpool should still have enough to beat Rangers. But it's a very different prospect when you play Man City.
It certainly can be no bad thing, though, Doyle, that Mohamed Salah was amongst the goals, as we've said, the fastest Champions League hat-trick. And it just seemed to me like he was popping up in much more normal Mohamed Salah positions. It kind of strikes me of, well, if you get him into those positions, this is what he can do. I suppose now the challenge for Liverpool and for him is to make sure that he's doing that in future, because I think it's probably fair to say up to this point in the season, he's not been in those positions to shoot that much. So, yeah, I suppose, can Liverpool do that on Sunday? If they can, that would be a big boost.
Well, he came on and played centre forward, didn't he? So that's why he was in those positions, because they were playing 4-4-2 at that point, which they're not going to play against Man City. I'd be amazed if they did that. It would be, if anything, 4-2-3-1. It depends on who's available, really. I don't necessarily think Salah got dropped in midweek. I think he was rested. If you're going to rest him for a game, it's got to be that one. And he needed to have a rest. We've been calling for it for a while now. And I don't necessarily think Liverpool played poorly against Arsenal. If Arsenal are this brilliant team, which they've done quite well, I mean, to be honest, having watched the first time I've watched them properly this season, and they still had an awful lot of Arsenal-y things going on. Let's face it, they scored. The winning goal was a penalty that was never a penalty for me. In the same way, I don't actually think Liverpool's penalty shout in the first half was a penalty either. So it was, you either gave them both or you gave neither of them, as far as I was concerned. So I thought Liverpool played well in the first half at Arsenal, but they were pushed back second half. But that's what happens when you go and play at these places. I mean, how many times have they lost at the Emirates in the past? Loads of times. So I wasn't particularly perturbed by that. I think against Rangers, they did what they had to do. In terms of Salah, yeah, he was poor against Arsenal. And I think he possibly could have been dropped. But I do think he was rested. And I think it's going to be different against City because he's not going to be playing in that position. I'd be surprised if he's playing in that position. But it's about working out how to play with Núñez. And I think with Núñez, he is going to be that central figure, because when it was Firmino, to a lesser extent Jota, when it was Mane, is that they would kind of wander away from that position and they'd open up the gaps and Salah would get in behind. And Nunes has obviously been told not to do that quite so much, and to be fair, he scored in the last 2 games, so you can't argue with that. He's looked fairly decent, and he's kept the ball up, and he's brought other teammates into play. And I think he'll have enjoyed his goal against Rangers because the way that it came about. He made the kind of run that he expect to make, and he had a couple of players who were willing to feed him. And I think he'd like them goals just as much as the one against Arsenal, where it's a cross and that's a kind of a striker's goal. So I think from his point of view, he's gaining confidence. I think he will cause City some problems. And I think when you've got someone like that and people start to realise, well, actually, he's quite good, we need to make a special dispensation for him. That's when more space might open up for Salah. And I also think that with Gomez playing right back, I think he'll be asked a little bit more there'll be a bit more of an onus on to be a bit more attacking. So I think Liverpool's formation or approach will be changed a little bit because he'll know he possibly doesn't have to come back as much as he might have done if Trent was there.
We'll come on to team selections and Manchester City specifically in a few minutes, but Roberto Firmino as well, Theo. We've spoken about him a lot. He's still, for me, a little bit of a conundrum. He obviously keeps scoring, keeps providing the assists, but I'm still not convinced 100% around his revival. Jurgen Klopp was asked about it at his press conference as well and kind of played down the overall kind of thing with him. Obviously, the goals are there, but hasn't been perfect in his performances. And I find it really tough to criticise him, but I'd still be a little bit concerned about seeing him in an intense game on Sunday. But then I suppose he would say, well, 8 goals, 4 assists, I think it is this season. You can't really argue with those numbers.
Yeah, Klopp summed it up perfectly, didn't he? He said, well, we look at the stats, we look at the numbers and think, oh, he's had a great start to the season, but the team aren't playing well. And with that, the individuals aren't playing well. So while he's getting goals and he's getting assists, there have been other moments from games that are missing. But it's not as though that is Roberto Firmino out of form. It's the whole team is just not clicking right, and he's just happening to be in the right place at the right time. And he's been clinical because, like, the chances he's taken, he's like the 2 in midweek. He's getting in the right areas, holding off challenges, and it's what you want to see from a prolific striker. In Arsenal, he probably took it a little bit too far wide, but he's still great finish to get it across goal into the corner. And it's this nice sign to him that we're seeing that he's arriving at the right place at the right time and getting on the end of things. And Liverpool needed it because, as much as Klopp said, be nice if they could spread the goals around a bit more between the games. He's the one who's been the consistent goal threat. You'd like to think that if it clicks for Liverpool soon and the team do get back to their previous best, he can reach these levels again, take them up another notch and still be this talismanic figure. It's interesting what Klopp said when he said, well, when Bobby's fit, he's always been first choice, because granted he had a lot of injuries last year, but I think they kept saying it on commentary when they started the season, you thought he was your 5th choice striker, but he's set out this welcome reminder that he is still there and he can still do the business in terms of this creative side to his game. It's whether he's still got the legs to be the high press and intensity monster that we used to see from him. But then Liverpool need to get back to that standard as well, and then we'll be able to see if he fits it quite as nicely. It can go either way, couldn't it, whether he starts against Man City. If starters, injuries are piling up, we don't know if there are any new ones because Klopp was keeping his cards quite close to his chest in the press conference. But if it's a 4-2-3-1, you'd imagine he's going to have to be your number 10. He's not really going to put Carvalho or Elliott there, so he might have to start. If it's a 4-3-3, he's still a player who knows City well and he's done well against him in the past. And it can go, if he leads the press well and he's back to his best, it's his sort of game, as it has been many times in the past. But if there's still that fear that he's declining slightly, he's not got the same energy levels, just come off the bench and get a goal, get a decisive goal, and that'll have everyone happy. It's a big season for me. He's got, a month to force his way into the Brazil squad. He hasn't played for him since the Copa America final last year. I know he was called up during the last break, but he didn't get off the bench. And then his contract's up next summer. Whether he gets a new one or not, we'll wait and see. But he's got a lot to prove, and so far the signs have been good.
Yeah, certainly. The goals and assists have been there. We'll come back to him, obviously, when we do our team selector at the end. So we won't go into any more further details on him at the moment. But to move on to a different player that you mentioned before, Doyle, Joe Gomez, obviously performed pretty well midweek. We would imagine that he'll be playing at right back against Manchester City. And you mentioned it yourself, really, the comparison with Trent. It does kind of strike me that it might not be the worst thing for Liverpool to have a more defensively minded fullback on the pitch on Sunday. It could work out quite nicely for them.
I mean, saying that we won't go into further detail on Roberto Firmino sounds like he's hiding this massive secret. We won't go any more into that. We'll just sweep it under the carpet.
We will, but just in about 10 minutes' time.
Gomez is interesting because I think what both he and Canati brought, and certainly Gomez brought it in the second half when he came on for Trent at Arsenal, it's a bit of physicality. He was bouncing players off him. And I know Ryan Kent is hardly the biggest player in the world. But I do think that he can do that, and Canati's got that, which perhaps Matip, he is all elbows and legs and stuff like that, and offers something different. Matip, he doesn't have that as much, I think, even though I can't remember any real games where he's been knocked off, but it's different. Canati kind of like gives that impression, and the other players know about it. I think with Matip, it's a bit more of a surprise. But Gomez is definitely certainly more physical present than Trent on the right, and I think that that is what they've needed. I think. Let's be honest, he set up a really good goal for Firmino, and it's from last season, from his games where he's playing right back, he's put in a great cross for Jota, didn't he, to score against, I think it was Watford.
Southampton, was it? I think
it was one of the southern teams. I'm pretty sure it was Watford. But anyway, yeah. So he does have that, but yeah, I think he will offer a bit more defensive solidity. Depends how City want to play. He plays on the left. Is it Foden? Has he been playing there, or has he been playing more centrally?
Greenish, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, Grealish. Well, they'll know each other from
Watford
from the England setup. So yeah, Gomez. He's a strange one, really. This is his 8th season there, and while he quite clearly would rather be playing centre back, I think at the moment he's going to have to play right back, and I think he actually does a really good job there, certainly defensively. And you look on social media, it's quite interesting because after the game, I said he had a good game, and one of the fan websites helpfully took a quote from mine and then didn't put any context around it, and then suddenly my mentions had loads of people telling me where to go, but also half of them were then saying, yeah, you're right. So he's obviously quite a divisive figure, like a lot of certain players with the same characteristics in the Liverpool squad have. So I personally think they'll need to have a good game. And I think if Liverpool are to get anything out of the game against Man City on Sunday, they don't just need him to be playing well; they need all the defenders to be playing well. And I think up against not just Haaland, it's all of them, isn't it? Jurgen Klopp said that. Look, it's pointless getting everybody on Haaland because City have got Haaland. They've got so many good footballers that they'll just go and find somewhere else. So this is one game, by the way, where we can't read anything into the Community Shield game, which was 2.5 months ago, because Haaland may as well have not been there, and now he very much is there. So we'll wait and see what happens.
Yes, I think Jurgen Klopp said it himself before, didn't he, around sort of the best way of stopping Haaland, Theo, is to just stop the ball getting into him. I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that when, as you mentioned before, you've got Kevin De Bruyne and various other players feeding him. But I suppose that's what Liverpool have got to try and do, isn't it? They've got to try and stop that supply line. And I suppose the midfield has been a bit of an issue for Liverpool, but it's going to have to be a big performance from them to help out the defence against these players.
Yes, it will. Whether it's 2 double sixes or 2 double sixes, whether it's the double sixes. To be fair, if they went 2 double sixes, they stand a chance having those extra runs.
It sounds like you're playing a really, really strange game of Yahtzee there. Does anybody know what that is? Does anybody know what that is?
Yes.
No? Okay, yeah, you do.
Yeah,
okay. They still have it when you. Okay, fine, good.
But yeah, if it was the double sixes or the revert to the midfield 3, Liverpool's midfield need to be at their best. They need to be on top of them, and you need to see the real Fabinho playing. You need to see Henderson at his most energetic, Thiago just controlling possession. I think the defence could help with this one. The fact that we're going to see these enforced changes because of Trent and Matip, because Gomez and Canate, they offer that bit more pace as well. So maybe it means the defence can be a little bit higher, knowing they've got the recovery pace to get back. They can track Haaland a bit more, but then they can also squeeze the gaps on the midfield. Liverpool just need to be a lot better than they have been for the most of the Premier League season so far. Man City, they're always going to be this huge test. We know how impressive Haaland's been. We know how impressive the playmakers are. It doesn't matter which 6 or 7 who they pick between, whether it's Foden, Grealish, Mahrez, Silva, De Bruyne, they're still going to be a threat. They're still going to be putting balls on the plates for him. You just need Van Dijk at his best to shove him off. You need Kanate's recovery base to get these late challenges in. And it's a blessing, I suppose, like I said, that Gomez is there, because Milner got absolutely tormented by Foden last year when he was at right back at Anfield. I think Trent must have missed that one through injury as well. So at least Gomez, he's got that bit more physicality. He's got that pace. it's a bit more defensive there. So hoping that solidity in the back line gives the midfield a bit more confidence in front of them. And if the front 4, 3, whatever it is, just keep scoring goals like they are at the moment, maybe it will be a kinder result for Liverpool than we'd have predicted after the Arsenal match. But it's just how they start. If they concede the first goal, it could be another horror show. If they start well, Anfield's actually up for it, we could be in for another classic.
Yeah, again, we'll come to our score predictions and how we think the game is going to go a little bit later on, Ian. But it does feel to me a little bit like it is just going to be a bit of a shootout. If Liverpool are going to have any chance of getting something here, they probably have to score a couple of goals and go for it a little bit, because you'd fancy probably Manchester City to get at least 1 or 2 at the other end.
Yeah, I mean, obviously City will score first. Because Liverpool can't just seem completely unable to. In fact, to be fair, if Liverpool want anything from the game, they have to score first. Because if City can score first, that's probably going to be it. Not necessarily because Liverpool can't fight back, but I think a lot might depend on how the fans are. I know that sounds a bit of a soft thing to say, but Klopp made a few references to it in the press conference. Having everybody at Anfield behind them, and they're going to have to do that. Theo wrote something the other week. Basically criticising the Anfield atmosphere, didn't you, Theo?
Doesn't sound like
the atmosphere. It was more to do with the fans who left early. Theo Squires at Theo Squires Echo. He's the critic of all Liverpool supporters, is what I'm saying. Basically,
I've been very negative so far this season. Put it that way.
But I actually agree with him, because I said at the Crafts of the Crystal Palace, the opening game of the season at home. Even then, you could see the fans were like, because they've already dropped 2 points against Fulham, another 2 against Crystal Palace, and they're thinking, that's it. And I think possibly now they might have got over the fact, Liverpool aren't challenging for the title, are they? It's a team that is, as I said at the start of the season, in transition. And everyone laughed at me, haha. It's like, well, sorry. But yeah, it's a team in transition. They're changing the attack. We know all of this, but I think fans have kind of come around to that now, and they can now see that. Well, we know what the aim is. We know we have to try and get this now. They're in a decent position in the Champions League. League Cup's not for at least another, 3 or 4 weeks before they play the game. Now they've got to start making the way up the table. And Liverpool, I've mentioned this previously, that their fixture list at the start has not been easy. Everyone knows that. Look, it's where they've dropped the games that they should have been getting the points is what been the issue. Palace, Brighton, Fulham. The other ones, you can give or take. It's going to be difficult. They will lose at these grounds. They will drop points. They always draw at Everton, for example. So that hasn't been the issue. And I think now, say, for example, if Liverpool lose against Man City, say Liverpool lose 2-1 and play fairly decent. Is it a crisis? Of course it isn't. Loads of teams will get beat by City. You'd rather they didn't get beat. It'd be a bit of a crisis and something's gone very wrong if City win 4-5-1. That's when you think, well, hang on, what's going on here? But I think Liverpool fans have kind of got used to the fact that this season, what to expect. And I think what they'll be expecting on Sunday is to give them a bit of a go. Klopp kind of mentioned that in his press conference, hinted at it. He says, look, we're talking all about City and how to stop them, but we've got to remember we have to cause them problems as well. I'm going to have to remind our players, we actually, he didn't say it, but, there are certain aspects where City are weak, and Liverpool have shown in the past couple of years that they can exploit that. I mean, you look at the game, the last time they played each other in the league 2-2 at City in the first half basically were like all over them, all over Liverpool. Liverpool couldn't really get a grip with it, and they managed to get a goal because they took advantage of some of City's defending, and then they got another goal to make it 2-2. And I think Liverpool have shown that more than any of the other clubs, that City can be got at like any other team. The only problem for Liverpool at the moment is that they've been getting at teams, but it's keeping them out at the other end. And I think that's the balance that they're going to have to strike on Sunday. And it will be interesting to see what Jurgen Klopp does, because when we come to the team selection in a minute, I think there's basically going to be one position where we're all going to and ahh over it and what he's going to do. And I think that's the decision that he's grappling with at the moment. And he'll only probably really decide it kind of a lot nearer the actual kick-off of the game, because it's the one thing that's going to determine how Liverpool approach this game and then how City react.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting. There's a couple of key players as well in that defence for City, missing John Stones and Kyle Walker both out. I think, Theo, that's certainly a big one. But the Walker one, I should say, in particular, feels like a big one to me. He's maybe not the best defender in the world, but even when he makes a mistake, he's got that pace to be able to just race back and get back in. He always feels like a big miss whenever he's not there for Manchester City.
he's a better all-round player than Trent Alexander-Arnold if you listen to the England manager, isn't he? So that means he's
you were going to
miss.
two-foot him then?
Yeah. You mean Steve Holland, the England manager?
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
That's really who's in charge of England.
Stones probably isn't as big a miss because I couldn't even tell you his first choice for City at centre-back these days, apart from Diaz, because Laporte seems to have dropped down the pecking order. They've signed Akanji, Nathan Ake. Is he going left-back these days? They've got so many defenders now that they've got pretty much cover all over. It's just Cancelo's the constant one who's like their Trent, but actually in form this year. So Walker, it'll be a miss, like you said, the recovery pace. I've never watched him and thought, oh, that's a really good player there. He's Liverpool going to struggle against him today. You always expect the players to cause him problems. If he didn't have the pace, he wouldn't be first choice for Man City at right back, put it that way. He's just got that attribute that makes him a better player than he perhaps is without it. But they've got such a strong squad, it doesn't matter who's missing. They're still going to have a very good, strong back four there. They're still going to have a good midfield and they're still going to have a great attack. It's why they are at the top of the table once again, a point of Arsenal, why they are constants in title races year after year, going as deep as they do in all the domestic cups apart from last season. Just need to find out how to win in Europe. Liverpool can't get close to them this year because they haven't got the depth they had for the second half of last season. It shouldn't be a surprise that Man City are in that league alone. But in a 90-minute match, one-off, Liverpool can run close to them. Hopefully they've got enough today. But defensive issues, not even issues, is it? They're still keeping a lot more clean sheets than Liverpool. Defensive absences won't make any difference here. They're still a well-trained side who know exactly what to do to get the best out of them, to get results. And we'll see whether Liverpool be at their A game and cause them trouble. Because, like Klopp says, they needed the reminder that it's not just about stopping City; it's about actually having a go at them as well.
Yeah, Liverpool have had plenty of defensive problems of their own, but I do think Kyle Walker being missing is probably a big sort of advantage really for Liverpool. I'm pretty sure he was missing for the FA Cup semi-final, wasn't he, last year, where Liverpool managed to exploit that. But we'll move on to picking our teams for the game then. Doyle, I'll come to you first. Obviously, Alisson Becker in goal, and I would suggest probably that the back four maybe picks itself as well, but I'll let you talk us through it.
It does.
Talk us through it then.
Alisson Becker in goal, Joe Gomez right back, Kanate and Van Dijk at centre back, and Andrew Robertson, he returneth, that's left back.
Yes. Same for you, Theo, I would imagine.
Yeah, I concur with our chief Liverpool writer, Ian Doyle. Same back four.
Excellent stuff. Right, I'll give you the midfield first then. I mean, it would be wrong of me to assume, but I'm going to assume that you're going to go for a 3, given it's Manchester City, but feel free to correct me.
Yeah, I think it's a 3. Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago. I think we're still saying that's Liverpool's first choice midfield at the moment. To be fair, with the injuries, it's hard to see them having much else in terms of depth. Just you need that extra body in midfield against Man City. It just feels that way. And it's not as though the 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1 has been this roaring to success despite an okay half against Arsenal and scoring 9 goals in 2 games against Rangers. It's not really enough of a test. Hopefully the defence is solid enough to go back to the 3 in midfield and not get embarrassed by Man City.
3-man midfield as well for you, Doyle?
I don't know, actually. Let's be honest, the only call for me is whether you play Thiago or Firmino. Now, because Henderson and Fabinho will play, if they're amongst the players that are available, that is. And don't know, don't know. Because if you are playing those 3, are they going to be a narrow 3 as opposed to the way that they've been playing with the 3? Do you play Thiago in the kind of more forward role, but obviously not quite as forward as Firmino? It's a tricky one, really. I mean, I would, I'll be different. I'll go with Firmino. So a kind of 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, because Firmino, he always does quite well against
2 double sixes.
Yeah. 12. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, Thiago can be the double 6 by going on the bench.
Interesting. Big call. We'll let you go through your attack then. I suppose that again takes care of itself. Giving you
Salah, Nunez and Jota has to be. There's no one else left.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with, but I'm going to go with a 3 in the midfield to sit and then let the other 3 go up and do the attacking on their own. But Theo, Firmino or Nunez for you? I'm going to assume that Diogo Jota and Mohamed Salah are your wide players.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, it's Nunez. He caused them problems off the bench in the Community Shield. He's got a couple of goals in the last couple of games. And Firmino seems to be scoring even when he comes off the bench, having developed that trait last year. Perhaps not as much of a game-changing sub as Nunez could be, but we'll go for the ones who can run a bit more, hoping that causes them more problems.
Well, this is the thing, is that they've got they can bring on a load of players if they want things to get, give them a bit of legs, because you know Elias and Carvalho now, they're, you could argue Firmino, if he doesn't play, or Thiago, to have a bit more control. And, if they're winning, then Milner will come on for the last 3 minutes, as he always does. It's always a good sign, to get a little hello from me in the ratings. And who else is there anyone else left? Any other players? Simicast, yeah.
Simicast.
Curtis Jones could be involved, I suppose.
I was going to say Jones.
Yeah.
Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Suddenly got loads of players.
Last week.
Yeah. The Oxlade-Chamberlain always does well. Oxlade-Chamberlain does well against City. Throw him in.
He got an own goal, didn't he, a couple of years ago against him?
He did once, yeah.
It was a good one.
He had that good shot once, so yeah, let's play him.
Hang on, right. Good shot. You can't say that. He did. No, because if Pep Guardiola, I can never get it right. Is it Guardiola, is it? Or is it Guardiola? I never get it right.
Guardiola, I would
Guardiola, right. Okay, him. The Man City manager. In the past, when he's pointed out Liverpool's attack, has mentioned Oxlade-Chamberlain. Obviously, he's not going to play, but the point being is that he has had a bit of history of doing quite well against Man City. So if he does get on, again, things must be going quite well for Liverpool.
Yes, I in some ways I hope he don't. I hope he doesn't, because that'll mean that every time he gets the ball, no matter where he is on the pitch, the whole crowd will just shout "shoot," and that really winds me up. But anyway, we'll move on to match predictions. I'm going to go for an optimistic 2-2 draw. I think. Doyle, what are you going to go for?
It's gone incredibly dark here, by the way. I'm not sure whether that's the harbinger of doom of me making a prediction. Well. Yeah, I don't know actually.
It's really hard, isn't it, to predict it? I think.
Okay. It's a weird one whereby I think if it ended in a draw, both teams would be well chuffed with that. Genuinely think if it's a draw, they'd both be really happy with that and they'd shake on it now, because I know for a fact that City are still thinking that Liverpool, if not challenging for the title this season, they're expecting them to come on strong in the second half of the season. And City will just want to put... They'd rather be playing them now than they would be, say, for example, February or March. Don't even know when the return game is. But I think City would be happy with the draw. I think Liverpool would be as well. And that kind of... If Liverpool don't concede the first goal, I can see them actually getting something from the game. So I will go 2-2 as well if Liverpool score first. But if Man City score first, City win 2-1 or 3-1.
Yeah, 1st of April, the return fixture is. Theo, what do you reckon?
Yeah, it depends on the first goal, who scores it, when it's scored. Liverpool need to put in a great start. I'm going to be really pessimistic in the hope that I'm pleasantly surprised. So I said the chip 4 on Monday. I'm going to be slightly more optimistic and say they'll actually score this time. So 4-1 City.
Hang on a minute. You said that they'd conceded 4 goals against Man City on Monday.
This was after the Arsenal game, yeah.
Honestly.
4-1.
They were shambolic defensively.
Our resident 2-footer Theo Squires has just gone in on everybody today.
Like I said, I'm hoping
Salah's dropped.
Nice
They're rubbish against Arsenal. Rangers are rubbish, so that game doesn't count. Firmino's not been very good, really. Cheer up. It's my job to be miserable on this podcast. Come on.
Well, you've just been optimistic, so I've got to work around that.
Realistic. I'm not optimistic or pessimistic. I'm realistic. That's the thing. And people, some people that can't handle that. Just fine. Other podcasts are available.
Yes. Please do stick with us.
Don't listen to them.
Well, yeah, I think that bombshell 4-1 to Manchester City, says Theo Squires. I think we'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.